You know when you're wrong about something and then you admit it and you update your database and your protocols and beliefs? Well, that's what I'm going to do right now. I have my libertarian tendencies, my thinking that people can choose to live however it is that they want, so long as they don't negatively affect others, as in terms of there are negative externalities, another way to put it. I used to believe that legalizing drugs would be a wonderful boon for society. And then when Oregon went ahead and did it, I actually created a video, one of the very first ones that I ever did, applauding this fact. And now we can see it in action. Now, this video is by James Klug. I think he does some good man on the street stuff. So I really want to react to it and just own up to the fact that I was just off when I see the results. And we are going to take a look here.
Oregon, the city that decriminalized drugs in 2020 and over the last 4 years has seen the highest numbers of overdoses, homelessness, and drug use in the city's history.
I'm homeless because I wanted to be. I was like, I'm moving to Oregon so I can smoke.
Given the results, this first-in-the-nation experiment with drug decriminalization came to an end late last year. So I met up with a couple Portland locals that have been documenting the crisis to learn more about it.
My name's Tara. I'm a street photographer.
I'm Kevin Dahlgren. I'm a videographer and independent journalist.
So have there been any improvements since recriminalizing drugs in Portland? What can be done to get people off the streets? And can the damage to the community over the last 4 years be undone? You guys, do you have to watch out for anything when you're walking in these areas?
Watch out for needles.
There's a decent chance there's going to be HIV in the needles.
That's okay. That's gross.
Those are, I'm going to be perfectly honest, not the best footwear for this area because of all the needles. So you always wear steel-toed boots.
There's needles, there's glass, there's
So
poop, and there's nails.
We wear these things just because we don't want to get stabbed by the needles.
Me and my wife briefly looked in Portland at the end of 2017 for housing there. And I just thought it was too weird a city. Look at it today.
So you got to be, and not to
Nico,
mention
it's so over for us, man. Is poop on the street something that's just incredibly common around these parts, or is it around the city? What's going on with that?
Well, there's not many porta potties. The porta potties we do have are oftentimes in flames, so everyone just poops on the street.
They also use that porta potty for having sex.
That is...
That one over there.
No.
Gross.
So where are we going right now?
Walking towards a Blanchet house, which is a kitchen that serves food to the homeless.
A large homeless population will sleep here 24/7 because they're fed 3 times a day.
Is it a problem if we're filming right now?
I was
Are we
just going
okay?
to say, be mindful. Not everyone's going to be stoked. If they get pissed, please just respect that and put the camera down on them.
Of course.
Because there may be a reason why they don't want to be filmed. Maybe they don't want to be seen. These are brand new tents handed out by the county.
These are brand new? And they're handed out by the
County. There's millions of dollars.
You mentioned that the city goes around taking down tents as well, so they hand them out and
Tents because they fund the nonprofits, the NGOs, to give them the tents, but then the city comes around and sweeps and removes the tents. So there's always this conflict. One person gives, the other person takes. And a lot of it is just an ideological war of just like, well, what's the best way to end homelessness? Do you end it by enforcement, or do you end it by helping as much as you possibly can till they're ready to get off their feet?
So who do we got over here? Tara is talking to somebody right now.
Yeah, we love him. Hey, brother. These are our friends from California. They want to learn more about homelessness here. Can they ask you a few questions, brother?
Perhaps.
How long have you been on the streets out in Portland?
A little over 6 years.
Are you receiving help from the city? Do you feel
This is what happens when you get involved with drugs, and this is why you should never begin. Why even bother going down that path when you can see the dark destination that too many people end up?
like they're doing enough to get people off the streets?
I have been able to help myself with what I need to do, and that's what matters to me. The other thing is like, if I were to say...
Hey, Kevin, should we stay over here, or are we...
If I were to say...
Sure, but we're calling 911 on this guy right here. He's severely sick, so we called an ambulance.
What's going on?
He just said he has severe digestive issues. He's very sick. He's been in there for a couple hours. He's asking for help. Tara's on the phone with 911 right now. We regularly call emergency services on these individuals. He's in a bad space, unfortunately.
And that's a frequent thing that you guys are doing
Very
out here.
frequently. If we're not helping him overcome an overdose, we're getting him into the hospital.
Wow.
It's everywhere.
Do you choose to live on the street, or is it not your choice?
I'm voluntarily homeless, man. I'm homeless because I wanted to be homeless.
Do you mind if I ask
To be
why?
honest,
Why you want
I've
to be
never
homeless?
been happier in my whole fucking life, man. If that tells you, I think I made a great decision for myself by being.
That's what happens when you get addicted to drugs. It becomes your overriding desire and force. And you are happy when you are able to attain that. That's the power of these things. And it's only gotten worse with fentanyl.
Homeless.
I would say half the homeless population I've met chooses to be out here. They like the lifestyle. They don't want to be in a small room by themselves, isolated.
It wasn't until I was able to accept the fact that I obtained homelessness that I was actually homeless. But you see, I'm also homeless because I wanted to be. So I had to take time to remember to say, self, good job at obtaining homelessness like you wanted to. You succeeded.
It's like you jump off a cliff and you say, good job, as you hit the bottom.
This young man desperately needs help. Tara, be careful where you're stepping. He's covered in feces. Just be aware of this.
You mentioned this is something that happens frequently where you're calling for an ambulance to pick somebody up.
Well, between us and a few other volunteers, it's dozens of times a week. Not to mention every other day we find a person overdosing. Once a week we find a person who usually has overdosed and died out here. It's very common, sadly.
Are you guys finding people
Yes.
that are dead?
We're able to save 9 out of 10 of them. We Narcan people regularly, but unfortunately that 10th person dies on us because there's so many people out here actively using, again, the deadliest drug in history. It's important to notice that 2 milligrams of fentanyl, which can fit on the nose on the Lincoln penny, can kill an adult man.
The fentanyl crisis in downtown Portland.
Fentanyl state of emergency.
Over 250,000 Americans have died from a fentanyl overdose since 2018. And in Portland, 2023 was the deadliest year on record for the homeless population, with overdoses doubling from 2022. But Kevin did mention they've been able to save.
Thanks, China. Thank you for creating all the precursors and then sending it to the Mexican labs who then distribute it here. This is just pure evil when you do that, knowing that you're giving people the cheap high that's going to cause this mass destruction in our society. It's killing America slowly, and that's their plan. Just weaken the opposition.
Save people when they're overdosing by using Narcan. So how exactly does that work?
So there's needles, there's fentanyl, and there's
That's the
Narcan.
anti-opioid blocker.
that takes people out of overdose.
When they say, have you been Narcaned? What does Narcan do?
It's an immediate opioid blocker. Usually takes 1 or 2 because fentanyl's so strong. You insert it into their nose and squeeze. And again, it takes a couple tries. We've helped dozens of people who've been overdosing just in the last 3 months. And they usually come to right away. They're confused. Usually when you Narcan, you then back off because sometimes they have weapons and they don't want someone leaning over them because they don't know what the heck is going on.
You need to back up.
You back off because sometimes they have very negative reactions. Interesting negative reaction is you stopped my high. They're
Really?
more angry that we stopped their high than we saved their life.
Except
Again,
that one.
the power of the drugs that it has over an individual. I remember that I volunteered for a day to feed at the mission in Los Angeles, and there was a man there who was trying to get out of being homeless and was working as a supervisor. He was a homeless person and he was a drug addict. And the moment, and he was talking decently, and I was just corresponding with him. And the moment he started talking about drugs, he just got this look in his face and his eyes. And you could tell that it has such a hold on them. It's just like you can will yourself off it for a little while, but for a majority of these people, they just swing right back to it because it's like a magnet that's attracting the metal that has been put into their body with the repetitive use, metaphorically, of course, and just whoosh, at the first opportunity, they're going to go back, and you could tell that guy's not going to make it just because that the moment he started speaking about drugs, it just had all the power over him, and you could just tell it was like, the drugs. It was sad.
Guy. It was like, oh, you guys did a great job. That was my best overdose ever.
Because we only Narcan them once, not twice, because 1 won't take away your high, but will generally speaking take you out of the overdose. 2, we're guaranteed to get the overdose and then takes with it high immediately.
And it's not just the high, it puts them immediately into withdrawal. So it switches them back into, oh my gosh, I'm withdrawing, now I need to go find drugs again, and then they go get it and they overdose again.
Yeah. You just handed him a tent. Where'd you get this?
I worked for Joint Office Homeless Services, and I just pick up tents. People donate them to me, and I come hand them out to people.
Wow.
I'm doing this because I love God, because this is where I was raised. It's in the streets. This is my family.
Is she homeless?
Yeah.
When it comes to you documenting your experience on the street, are you doing photo shoots with everybody? Do you recognize a lot of people, or are you seeing new people all the time?
Well, yes and yes.
Yes
So
and yes.
we're constantly getting an influx of new people, basically homeless tourism, drug tourism. But of course, there's people that we recognize all the time. There's even times where someone has changed so much over the amount of a year of being on the streets here that I don't necessarily even realize it's the same person. But then I put it in my Lightroom,
Right.
and it does face recognition,
Right.
and it'll pop up as is this the same person? And I'm like,
What are the drugs that are doing that to people? Changing the face, changing the look? What's fentanyl?
yeah.
Since there's been so much death and destruction out here, a lot of the addicts out here are trying to switch back to meth because it's safer, which is crazy to say.
Right.
And also heroin is now safer
face.
because fentanyl.
Y'all ever seen meth face? Imagine fentanyl face being worse.
Is 50 times stronger than heroin.
Is it difficult for them at all to switch away from fentanyl going to heroin because it's less powerful? It doesn't hit them as hard?
They're just terrified of one hit could kill them. Hey,
How we doing?
these are my friends from California. They're talking to people about what it's like to be out here. Do you want to share really quickly? We love you because you always have a good insight.
What do you mean? To be homeless?
Well, homeless, addiction, just really street life.
I'm not addicted. I don't do fatty. I don't disagree with it, but
You don't do Fetty? What do you do?
I do crystal from time to time. I use it for pain.
How often are you doing meth?
Look at him, he's
I
whacked
don't
out.
know. Not that much, but
Not that much.
the sad fact is, it's not anyone's fault, but the ones who decriminalized it. You can't be mad at people for using it.
Okay, so it's not in the open anymore. It seems like people are getting in the habit of kind of hiding it.
You see their backs a lot.
Right.
A year ago, people were just like sitting in bus stops in front of little old ladies doing it, and it just was
Out of control.
completely out of control.
There are some very dark days where it's the mood is dark.
Comparatively speaking, this is a pretty mellow day. Everyone's in a good headspace. We're not seeing fist fights in the middle of the street. We're not seeing overdoses. We're not seeing a lot of people screaming in pain.
This is chipper.
It's chipper.
Chipper for Portland.
It's chipper.
Wow. We're going to wait for the ambulance if
There's
you
no
want.
Yeah,
ambulances.
place to be chipper.
They're all booked. There's no ambulances.
Wait,
right
say
now.
that again?
There's no ambulances to pick him up.
Holy crap.
That's,
Okay.
So,
that's
I'm gonna make sure
frustrating.
somebody.
have you heard that before?
Yes.
It being booked?
So-
They're literally too busy to where
imagine-
they can't show
So
up. for
here we
people.
are calling 911 on someone who seriously needs help, and they say they're booked. That's insane. I'm glad you could witness it because this is a problem.
They actually come.
So you guys, we're waiting for an ambulance for this gentleman right here. Experiencing what was he saying he was experiencing? Are you detoxing?
Yeah.
So when you're detoxing stomach pains?
Oh, it just all comes out.
It's bad. This is the result of detoxing off the most addictive drug in history. This is what's happening. And I would argue this is definitely a emergency, and you would hope ambulance would show up, but they're booked, so now we have to wait.
And paramedics never actually ended up arriving for him. Instead, the semi-homeless lady dropping off tents started treating him herself, which you'll see soon.
Do you want a cigarette, brother? These are my friends from California. They want to learn more about homelessness. Do you want to share your perspective, what it's like to be on the streets?
It's okay. I like being on the streets. I like.
Oh, you do like being on the streets?
I do, because I have more money in my pocket when I get paid.
If you're living on the
For
street,
what?
how's the weather been for you? Where do you go at night?
I've been going to the shelter. I did sleep in a tent for 2 or 3 nights, but it got so goddamn wet, and there's so many people peeing in the street, and that's wild. Everything smells like shit. You're better off sleeping in a shelter. If you sleep outside, it's not very bright. It really ain't. Unless you can find a clean place, but it seems like they're all drunk and just pissing in the streets. I don't get drunk myself.
You don't drink?
No, I don't drink. I smoke meth and pot, and that's it. I feel better about myself
Just
when I
meth,
wake up
just
the next
pot,
morning
no big deal.
after getting meth high instead of being drunk.
Right.
Because drunks, that's not the smartest thing to do. It really ain't.
Do you have any goals
opposed to
of quitting it all, or no? Do you enjoy it?
No, I enjoy it. I really truly enjoy getting high. I really do. I like getting high.
This is very common. I heard the questions you asked. A lot of people out here enjoy using drugs. They choose to be on the streets. That goes against the narrative that we've heard over and over again from the system, is that housing ends homelessness and everyone's an addict.
This is absolutely correct. Every single person that they've interviewed here is an addict. Gavin Newsom was on Adam Carolla maybe 10, 11 years ago, and he stated that the face of homelessness is the woman who is a single mom with 2 kids who just got laid off of her low-income job and they don't have any money. That is just patently false. That's what they want you to believe. And then they fund these homeless NGOs that benefit the more homeless people that they have. They're not out there trying to cure homelessness. They want to create more of it because they get more salaries. And we're talking about $250,000. These people want to be homeless. I'll tell you my solution for this after we go through this whole thing.
We have no choice. A lot of people choose this. And this is the only way to end this crisis, is to know and understand the problem.
All right, you guys, let's take a few moments to talk about today's sponsor and the people that made this video possible, private internet access. Using the internet without encryption is like shouting your private messages in a crowded room. Yeah, everyone just saw your cringy joke.
The streets, I don't get drunk myself.
You don't drink?
No, I don't drink.
Housing ends homelessness.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, brother. Hey. You want to hop in?
I'd be glad to. You know,
Another cigarette?
Yeah, sure.
How long have you been homeless?
Off and on, probably 6 years of my life.
What drugs are you using?
I like speed. I like marijuana. You know, obviously, I smoke the heck out of marijuana. I use psychedelics.
Did you move to Portland because of the decriminalization?
Absolutely. In all truth. You know, I just bought a little bit of speed there or whatever, and I was like, I'm moving to Oregon so I can.
Yep, there you go. People respond to the incentives that you give them. Show me the incentives, and I will tell you the results. This is a quote that is attributed to the late Charlie Munger, Berkshire Hathaway partner with Warren Buffett, and it applies to everything in life. If you have a very tough border, for example, with Donald Trump disincentivizing border crossings, for example, with that video with Kristi Noem, where she is in front of CCOT in El Salvador, the prison there, telling people that this is what's going to happen to you, that is there for a purpose because it offers the disincentive for people to cross the border versus Biden giving out your taxpayer dollars to illegals and California giving free medical care to illegals. Of course, they're going to come across the border, the same as this man went to Portland because they decriminalized drugs. Of course, they're going to attract the masses, the hordes, and all the neighboring states/cities should be in some way glad that the riffraff decided to go to Portland.
For sure. And not you weren't having to worry about, I guess getting the law.
You could have a bubble, you could have a bowl loaded up, you could be smoking. They say as long as you're not blowing it in anybody's mouth, you're fine.
Were you aware that they did recriminalize it last year? Has that impacted you at all or no?
No, it hasn't.
Have they been enforcing it at all?
It certainly is what it is. I mean, the law changed. I mean, hardly anyone that I even know that's had too much of a run-in is most people just have the sense to just put things away.
Kevin, this is seeming to be foolproof when it comes to the cigarettes. This is definitely your strategy here. Is that correct? I mean, is it better than cash?
It's the best icebreaker in the world. This gets further than cash, gift cards, anything, is everybody wants a cigarette, so we always have smokes.
I would imagine some of them might even reject cash just because they don't barter in that way or they don't have a need for it right now.
And we proactively offer cigarettes all the time. You know, we're not here to judge if you're smoking. These are people on the streets in survival mode. The last thing we care about is if they're smoking cigarettes.
What do you have right there? What is that?
So this is naloxone, and this is what works with CPR. The fentanyl now is so strong that the Narcan isn't really working. This city is growing so fast and so rapidly, it's just not prepared. No matter how much money's sent into here, they're not prepared for how bad this epidemic should come. They're mixing this stuff at home, and you don't never know from one hit to another if it's going to be the hit that's going to kill you.
Individuals overdosed and died. Police say 2 PPS students were found dead.
Drug overdoses are hitting downtown Portland.
The deaths were all over the city.
Do we think it's a mixture of, hey, they had difficult upbringings?
90% of the time, it is absolutely difficult upbringing. It is childhood trauma. A lot of people out here went through something severe when they were very young. Most people don't generally wake up one day and be like, this is going to be great. Because even the one that choose the streets, they got a lot going on. They have a lot of demons and stuff, and they're just like, I don't want to be indoors and feel claustrophobic.
Do you prefer being out here instead of a shelter?
I think people think they can
get over on me easily, and I just don't want no problems. So I don't like some shelters.
You feel more at risk being in a shelter than on the street?
I wouldn't say risk. I just don't want no problems from anybody. I can get away, not get away, but walk away a lot easier.
I see what you mean. If there's an issue, you can walk away, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Like, you want to be in a shelter with a bunch of volatile people. This guy I know who's in a very nice new shelter that took forever to build, he's in a bunk. And so the guy beneath him in the bunk is like smoking fentanyl. And he's trapped in the room with this guy and nobody does anything about it.
I worked in the shelter system for over 7 years, and it's just a chaotic environment. Most people don't want to go. Has anybody ever approached you in the last year and 3 months you've been out here and offered you real help to get off the streets? Yeah. And did you decline it?
Yes.
Is that because you weren't ready to live indoors, or you?
Yeah, I wasn't ready yet.
They're giving out tents for free. How come some people just don't have tents and are just, sleeping on the
Well,
side?
I mean, first of all, they don't want the pain of having to put it up and take it down every day. So they just kind of live, it's called rough sleeping, just like live on the streets. Bye, sweetie.
Hey, how you doing?
Do you have any marijuana?
I don't have any marijuana.
Hey, why don't you have a tent?
I'm poor white trash.
How long you been living on the street like this?
Since I became poor white trash.
How did you end up on the streets? Do you remember?
I thought I would be okay being homeless because I thought I'd be in better shape.
So you kind of chose to go on the streets at least a few years ago, and then you've just been out here ever since, which is very common.
It doesn't get you in better shape.
It doesn't. Do you want off the streets?
Yeah.
You do? So if someone were to approach you today and get into a shelter, you would go?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah, definitely.
Because we can call someone and get someone here, dear.
I don't want to go in any vehicle with somebody who's had.
I understand it because you don't know us, but if you're interested in a shelter, we can give you the information, okay? But like that's common is a lot of people choose to come out on the streets. And then they're here and then they get trapped. Hey, man. This is Echelon. They do solid work out here. They're here to keep the streets clean and safe, so he has access to shelters, he has access to housing and resources, and so they kind of find that delicate balance between enforcement and compassion. These are the only other people we see out here except for volunteers, is private security, but these are people really trying to make a difference out here.
Is it funded by the city or is it a private company?
It's private, and again, this is an example, the businesses fund these individuals, not the city and not the county. So this is the natural result when you have a community unable or unwilling to solve the crisis. Businesses hire private security to keep their area clean.
How did you end up living on the street, if you don't mind me asking?
When I got out of rehabilitation, I tested dirty. So when I tested dirty, go back to the streets.
What drugs have you been addicted to or are using currently?
Marijuana and crystal. Marijuana is more addicting than crystal.
Have you tried to quit crystal? Or
Yeah.
you have tried? Is it difficult to quit or?
No, marijuana is though. Yeah, it's very addicting.
Is it safe out here for you guys? Do you feel like you're well taken care of by the city?
No, it's not safe for anyone.
Why do you say that?
Stranger danger, period.
For
If
sure.
you don't know somebody, you don't know what they're capable of, you don't know what they might do.
This is Taylor, he wants to talk.
Hey Taylor,
California.
how you doing? I'm James. Nice to meet you. What are we doing right here?
I'm smoking a little bit of weed.
When it comes to you being on the street, I'm curious how long you've been on the street for?
15 years.
15 years. When did you move to Portland?
About a year ago.
Why'd you come to Portland out of all places?
I've always heard a lot about Portland, and it's always been like wild, like cool stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll check it out.
Has it lived up to that hype?
Or beyond. Bro.
Would you recommend living on the street, or would you tell people, hey, don't do this?
No, some people get the fuck inside.
You might be noticing a couple trends in these conversations. I'm running into a lot of people who moved here in the last few years. Drug addicts from all over the country got word that Portland had decriminalized drug use, and many decided to move here. But how do they all get these drugs? We were talking about the dealers out here. Now, we haven't seen them today, have we?
Not the Hondurans, there's a few of the homeless dealers out here, but they're very low level that distribute to like 3 or 4 people in an hour.
There's guys who ride around playing music on speakers. They don't have the supply on them, but people follow them. They follow the sound of the music, say what they want. And
So it's kind of like Pied Piper. Is you follow the music. It's a person usually on a bike and a backpack, and they're the ones you follow to the person who has the drugs.
It's like an ice cream truck.
Yeah.
For drugs. Interesting. Where are we walking to right now?
We're walking to Union Station.
What's going on at Union
Well, I mean,
Station?
look, the homeless are very territorial and will stay in certain blocks. The ones over here generally stay over here. So there's almost like two different states. And it's arguably a little sketchier over here.
What do you mean by sketchier?
Well, I mean, there's more people with weapons here. There's a lot more drug activity, drug dealing.
You
We do know
guys
all these
are,
people here, but the challenging dynamic is there's a good 10 people.
All it takes is one person to get pissed at you, and then they rile everyone up and are like, steal their camera, beat them up.
You guys avoid groups.
Well, if we don't know, like, I recognize 3 or 4 of them. And also, that's the Lou. That's the famous Lou.
We should probably check this out, but is it the drugs Lou or the sex Lou?
Well, it's both at the same time.
There you go.
Your name's James?
Yes, sir.
I'm James, too.
I'm also like,
You've gotten photos from Tara?
Yeah, no, she takes the best pics.
Was it just me that picked up on that, or was there like muscle there, or no?
So there was a guy behind you holding a knife. He was a little wary with who we were. He knows Tara. He may not have recognized me. And that's why I just stayed close, because we're outsiders. He possibly was contemplating they got good equipment, or maybe I need to use this to get rid of them. A month ago, Tara and I were handing out jackets. Everybody was happy and lovey. And literally within 10 seconds, there was a brutal fight in the middle of the streets where they were repeatedly kicking a guy in the head. And this happens sometimes, and you don't want to be in the middle of it. And I've been stabbed out here twice.
Wait, hold on. You've been stabbed out here?
Twice, but I've been out here for a long time. I've been doing this work for 20 years.
What other injuries have you received?
Well, I mean, I've had multiple guns pulled on me over the years. I've had glass shoved into my neck. I've been burned. I mean, you're working with very unpredictable people out here, and sometimes that's going to happen. Check a cigarette, brother.
What keeps you going, man? Is it a sense of duty? I'd be very curious as to why you continue after that. There are decent people out there, I suppose.
No worries at all.
I'm the president of the United States. Nice to meet you.
Wait, well, I mean, they want to interview the president. Are you the
President of the United States? Oh, we have to meet you.
I heard Donald Trump was elected. This homeless woman who's sleeping on the sidewalk here, she's been like this for years. We did a story on her, and the social service providers noticed and got her into housing. We verified recently she's still in housing, but guess where she comes every single day? Because that's all she knows. So she is in housing, but she sleeps on the sidewalk all day long because this is all she knows. A lot of politicians will drive by and be like, I need to give them $1 million more of funding because I counted 50 homeless, when realistically 25 of them have housing but choose to be out here. So then why you shouldn't fund 50 people? You should find a way.
Again, do not believe the Democrat lies about homelessness, that these people are there because of a lack of housing. That's what they claim in Los Angeles. It's so ridiculous. They're there because they're drug addicts. 99% of homeless people are drug addicts or are schizophrenic and have mental disease.
To get her off the sidewalk and into housing and ask why she chooses to be out here.
What we've seen so far, just a few blocks in Portland. So Kevin and Tara took us across the Willamette River to Inner East Side, where the homeless are living a completely different life. Let's check it out.
This is hilarious because this is a good example of someone literally building a tiny home right now. It's very common. And what I would say to this is the natural result when you have a government unwilling or unable to solve the homeless crisis. They're going to take matters in their own hands and build their own housing. Hey, can we check it out? I'm with my friend from California. We are interested in these kind of structures.
I'm James, by the way, you guys.
Kirk.
Nice to meet you, Kirk. Nice to meet you guys. Here.
Alrighty. Whoa, look at this.
And actually, this is really cool because we're in an incomplete tiny home that's being built. This is a sturdy one. This is good.
Well, and they're doing the ground, too,
Yeah.
the flooring. Where do they get the wood? It's just pallets? Is
Well,
this
yeah,
what this
a
is?
ton of wood is everywhere around here. I mean, this is where people like just dump wood everywhere. There's a lot of businesses and stuff. This is far better than living in a tent.
Are you building this on your own? Is everyone helping out, or is this yours?
Yeah, this is mine.
This is yours?
Yeah.
Are you sharing it with anybody, or no?
Of course. Yeah.
Friends?
So friends. Our core group of,
crew.
yeah. You know, if somebody came by and was cold, whatever, I would.
Where'd you learn how to make something like this? I mean, this is pretty complete.
Yeah, I used to work construction. It actually looks really crappy, but it's not the best because I only had a handsaw and a hammer.
You can imagine if there was no such thing as currency, right?
She's a carpenter.
Right.
I'm a farmer. She builds me a house. I feed her for life.
So this is very common here. This is where we see structures being hand-built because you can get away with it more because it's less visible.
Right.
I mean, there's no
It's certainly
residential-
more hidden for sure.
Yeah, this isn't really a residential area. It's industrial, so people are going to camp here longer because they can get away with it.
Mm.
So we just saw a pretty well-built house. This is one that's built, maybe a little less effort, but this is a good example of a tiny home being built next to the train tracks.
How often does the train come? I mean, it seems like up there might be a quieter place to set up shop
It's
than
about
right
every
here.
20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, these go by every 20 minutes at least.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. They recently started arresting people for using drugs. Has that impacted anybody or no? Have you guys noticed anything with it when it comes to police officers coming by?
I've been busted twice already.
Yeah.
You've been busted twice
Yeah.
already?
Yep.
What'd they bust you for?
Getting high.
Out here, have you ever Narcan somebody? And how many people have you Narcaned?
Too many to count, brother. Too many. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, right there, a kid took one hit off of a fentanyl boil or whatever, and down he went.
Do you know how many times you've been Narcaned?
14 times.
Probably about 6 times.
6 times, personally? Have you ever been Narcaned?
No,
Have you Narcaned somebody else?
I have.
How many times?
A few times.
A few times.
There's a lot of homeless that live in boats down here and along other spots on the river, and they get told to move here and there, but essentially, like, they just kind of hang out on the boats and live there until they sink.
So you guys, we have a couple boats out in the water right here. Is that one? There's no way that that one is.
You can tell because that's not normal to have like the bicycles on there.
Right.
The
True.
all the junk and stuff. So this is usually where the concentrated area of people who are arguably homeless, not homeless because they're actually living inside a boat, but these are just kind of known as the homeless boats.
Well. I think someone's yelling at you for being on the boat.
You saw me standing on the hood of your car. You'd be flipping out. Call the cops. You're standing on the hood of my boat. I would love a cigarette.
That's the least we can do, huh?
That's all right.
No disrespect.
It's a pretty well. Right on.
I love the colors of it.
They're visiting from California and they were just doing a little story on homelessness, and we noticed that. And we honestly thought it was one of the many.
Yeah, I know.
But we apologize.
I got my work boat over there. That boat's getting repaired.
I got this cool shot of your boat.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah, we apologize. We honestly just thought it was just one of those yet another abandoned boat.
Yeah, I know. Like the one that was up here on land for a while. Yeah.
And for the record, she actually stood on it, not me. So
That's all right. That is all right. You guys have a good day now.
Have a good one.
Enjoy your visit.
Thank you so much.
De-escalation 101. Once again, bring cigarettes.
he went from being pissed off to, in the future, he wants to invite us onto his boat. We didn't know someone owned it because there's a lot of boats like this, but, you know, just confront it, shake their hand, and generally speaking on the streets, they respect that and everything's cool.
Do many people reject the portrait?
Yeah, they do.
They do?
But it's okay. I just say it right.
It almost seems like they're pleased. It kind of feels like they feel seen.
Yeah.
So you've been out here for 8 years, you said?
Yeah, just about that.
What's your drug of choice, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in pain, so I'm always in pain. And it's not really a drug of choice. It's just a need for pain relief.
What's causing the pain?
I was in a coma from 18 days, and I've got 8.5-inch craniotomy surgery from here to here, and so it's very much very difficult.
So you're just trying to deal with the pain, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Has anyone?
Doctors don't want to prescribe anything, so it's like that's all we can do.
Has anyone approached you out here trying to get you into a shelter instead of being on the street, or are you staying at a shelter right now?
I'm staying at Market Street Shelter right now. Market Street Shelter is the best shelter that has been around. It's the best one that I've had over the years. It's the only place that I feel comfortable in.
When did you start going to the shelter?
A year ago.
And then before that, any experiences that were negative on the street, any violence, any crime?
Of course, yeah. I got jumped in the street and got put in a coma, and guys with baseball bats and just hit.
They caused that?
Yeah.
So they hit you with baseball bats?
Yep. And then Brass Knuckles, his friend from behind, came with Brass Knuckles and hit me like from behind. I was sleeping on the street in a tent, and then over 7-8 years, and finally, like, I prayed to God and I need some help, and I finally Market Street Shelter.
We're just learning what right now?
A fan of our work. They're donating an RV to Tara and I to give to a homeless family.
Do you guys have a pretty good idea of like a few groups or a few families that you
There's
could
a few
give that
we
to?
can think of. I mean, they didn't specifically say it has to be a family, but we certainly want to go to a deserving, hardworking person that's working really hard to get off the streets.
By the way, if people do want to donate stuff to you guys, where can they go?
I have a Venmo that people can say specifically, like, I would like to donate this for this purpose, like food or whatever. So yeah, my Venmo is Tara-Fall. I also put things on an Amazon wish list that I could give a link to.
To not complicate things, we just have everything go through her, so it all goes to the same good cause.
Oh, is something burning right there? Here. Careful.
My friends are filming a documentary, and they film the sidewalk and stuff. What we understand, there's several people knotted out inside. So.
What is that smoke? That's the motor?
No, that is the smell of fentanyl. That you can smell. It's very chemically.
Yeah.
There's about 4 or 5 men completely knotted out, and one young female. She looked to be about 18, 19 years old. She's the one who answered. I gave her 3 cigarettes, but it's just a pigsty in there. Just terrible. I wouldn't want my worst enemy to live in something like that.
So we're doing a documentary here, and I'm just talking to some citizens. Obviously, a big thing over the last few years was Measure 110, decriminalizing drugs. Obviously, now they are recriminalized, and I'm wondering if you thought that was the right thing to do.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I mean, I'm for decriminalization, but then I've read about how, crime has increased, and there's been, I think, more.
All you have to do is look. You don't have to read. Just look. You live there.
Overdoses. So.
Well, we can all see it went bad.
Did you support it initially or no?
I did, because a lot of things were promised that it was going to be helpful for all these individuals, and the help then it wasn't there. So we just did them wrong. Sadly, I voted yes.
Have you noticed it getting worse over the last 4 years when it was decriminalized?
Yeah, it's been getting steadily worse. I mean, they openly do it.
I feel as if I'm in India. I feel awful walking past somebody who doesn't have a house.
Do you think a lot of them are out on the street by choice or no?
No. Who wants this kind of life?
I'm voluntarily homeless, man. I'm homeless because I wanted to be homeless.
Nobody wants that. Nobody's actively choosing to be living out here in the cold and in the rain.
She is in housing, but she sleeps on the sidewalk all day long.
Over the last 4 years when it was decriminalized drug use, what were some of the crazy things that you would see personally just being around Portland?
What we all have witnessed, just walking here to the store and seeing needles, seeing people dying, seeing dead people, and these foils that they were stuck in your shoe, and then you will know like it was paraphernalia to use drugs, and then you just bring them to your house.
That's pretty wild.
It happened to me. It got stuck in the bottom of my shoe, a piece of oil, and my dog was licking my shoe, and I freaked out, thinking like,
I mean, you got kids and people that don't want to see that stuff.
I would not walk my grandkids around here because, kids pick up things. And I'm not talking about germs. I'm just talking about like it's a matter of life or death.
So you don't walk your children around this area?
No. Sadly, no.
You can't just tell a person, stop using. You need to give them the tools and the support to get clean. That's the only way we're going to do it.
Do you feel hopeful that that's going to happen in Portland?
No, not soon enough. I mean, look, it took 34 plus months after we decriminalized drugs to build the very first detox facility. In those 34 months, we had the largest increase of overdoses and deaths in state history.
Right.
That's a concern. I did not support the decriminalization of drugs. I knew it was going to be this perfect storm nightmare. I only support the recriminalization of drugs if there's support and there's enough outreach and enough recovery programs that help these individuals, considering that 90% of every homeless person out here is actively using drugs.
Decriminalizing drugs in Portland was clearly a failed experiment that the citizens of Portland have to pay for. As Kevin said, recriminalization will only be effective if there are enough outreach and recovery programs for these people living on the streets. I guess we'll see how Portland decides to handle things moving forward.
Wow, that was a very sad documentary and a needed one. And good work, James Klug. I hope that you guys got something out of it. I promised you that I would give you my idea. It's not a very empathetic one, but I'm going to just say that if you put a tiny city out in the middle of nowhere, it would kind of be like Pleasure Island in Pinocchio, except for the fact that everybody going there is already kind of a donkey. Sorry, that's the reality. They don't have human functioning anymore. They still have souls, but it's mired in the muck of addiction and drugs and fentanyl. And you just distribute the drugs to them, allow them to imbibe as much as they want, but you have a place there specifically, a hospital, in an effort to get them off if they choose to go there. You don't have to force anybody there. They're just going to hear that this stuff is available there. It's much better than having them in a city center destroying that city. And hopefully, if you have it centrally located and enough people choose that they want to attempt to alleviate themselves of the addiction, that more of them will decide to as well, and maybe they can return to society and it would be completely voluntary. That's my suggestion. I was one who supported the decriminalization of drugs because I'm a libertarian. I believe that you have the right to pursue your own choices in life, and I still basically believe that, but you see the negative externalities that have taken place as it's being openly done within the city limits. And as Dr. Drew says, addiction is a progressive illness. In other words, it just keeps progressing and you keep going downhill, downhill, downhill. So all this has to be moved away, and China and Mexico have to be dealt with harshly for intentionally infusing fentanyl into the American system. It makes me wish for the days of heroin and pot. That did far less damage if you take a look at what these people have gone through. And I feel sorry for each of them, but my Pleasure Island reverse the donkeyism idea, I still believe has some merit. Let me know what you guys think of my idea and what you guys think of Portland decriminalization, recriminalization, and all that in the comment section below. And I'm wishing you all a great day. Thumb up the video. God bless. Peace.